What if I told you that a super simple English lesson for kids, the kind you see in every classroom, actually holds the key to a huge scientific truth about their health? Well, today we're going to connect the dots, from the pages of a textbook all the way to the hard data from the playground. And trust me, the connection is pretty surprising.
Okay, so our story starts right here, with this really popular English textbook called Let's Go. We're going to zoom in on one specific lesson from Book 4. The unit's theme? It seems almost too simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Outdoors and indoors.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with that simple textbook lesson, then we'll get into why the location of an activity matters so much. After that, we'll look at what the science says, the outdoor effect, if you will, and see the actual data behind playtime. And finally, we'll tie it all together, connecting learning and health. All right, first up, let's crack open the textbook. What is this lesson actually teaching kids? Well, at its core, it's about giving them the words they need to talk about their world. Both what they do and how they feel while they're doing it. A huge part of this unit is all about feelings. It teaches words like worried, bored, and of course, excited. It's really about giving kids the tools to describe what's going on inside their heads as they go about their day. And it's not just about feelings, right? The lesson also gets into movement and direction. It uses these simple past tense phrases like went into the woods or went through a tunnel to help kids tell stories about where they've been. It's all about building a narrative of their little adventures. So, when you put it all together, this unit is mixing words for feelings, directions, and activities. And it makes this really clear split between outdoor stuff, like watching a baseball game, and indoor stuff, like playing a board game. Seems pretty straightforward, right? Well, that little split is exactly where things get interesting. Because this is where our story takes a really cool turn. The choice to frame a lesson around outdoors and indoors, well, it's not just random. It is way, way more important than you'd probably think.
And that brings us to the big question, why this specific contrast? Why is it so fundamental to a kid's development to talk about being outside versus inside? It seems so simple, but there's a deep reason for it.
To get the answer, we actually have to put the English book down and pick up a scientific study. This one right here, a comparison of preschoolers' physical activity indoors versus outdoors, gives us the cold, hard data explaining why that distinction is so vital.
Okay, now we're getting to the really good stuff, the science. This study basically set out to answer one question. How different are kids' activity levels when they're inside compared to when they're outside? And they used hard data to prove it.
But before we look at the results, there's one little acronym you gotta know, MVPA. It stands for Moderate to Vigorous Physical Activity. Basically, just think of it as the good stuff, the running, the jumping, the play that gets your heart pumping. It's absolutely essential for a kid's healthy development.
And the way they did this study is just so cool. They gave 46 preschoolers these little devices called accelerometers to measure every little movement, and GPS trackers to know if they were inside or out. So there was no guesswork here, just pure, objective data. And what they found, honestly, it was a total game changer. All right, let's get right to the numbers. This is where you can really see the incredible power of what we're calling the outdoor effect.
And there it is, the single biggest takeaway from the entire study, and it's just staggering. Kids are literally twice as physically active when they're outside compared to when they're inside. That's not just a little difference, it's a massive health multiplier. So let's break down that 2x number. When kids were indoors, they only spent about 12% of their time in that crucial, healthy activity zone. But the second they stepped outside, boom, that number skyrockets all the way up to 31%. It just goes to show, the environment really is everything. Okay, here's maybe an even more practical way to think about it. For a kid to get just 1 single minute of that healthy, heart-pumping activity, they need to spend over 9 minutes playing indoors. But outside, they get that same exact benefit in less than 4 minutes. Outdoor time is just way, way more efficient for staying healthy.
So let's tie this all back together. We started with this simple English lesson, and we've ended up looking at some pretty serious public health data. So what's the real connection here? Why does this all matter?
Well, that lesson in the Let's Go textbook, it's doing so much more than just teaching words. By linking outdoor play with awesome feelings like being excited, it's building this really positive association in a kid's brain. It's making them want to do the very thing that science now proves is absolutely critical for their physical health.
And the science could not be clearer. I mean, listen to this.
The researchers themselves conclude that one of the most effective ways to make kids healthier is simply to get them to spend more time outdoors. It's a direct, simple, powerful recommendation.
And if you need just one last piece of data to take with you, let it be this one. For every 10 minutes a child is outside, they get almost 3 full minutes of that vital, healthy activity. Even just small chunks of outdoor time have this direct, immediate payoff. So a simple lesson in a kid's textbook points us toward a really profound scientific truth. It's not just about learning to say you went over a bridge. It's about the incredible health benefits of, actually going over that bridge. Which kind of leaves us with one final thought. Knowing that every 10 minutes outside gives you back 3 minutes of vital activity, what's the first small change we can make?